welcome to Real Talk. I'm your host, Paul Britton. With me is the godfather of the pod. It's Sergio Barrera. Hey, Sergio, how are you?
Good, Paul. How are you?
I am doing wonderful. Thank you for asking. And it's always wonderful to have you and to see you. I will say, though, I was a little more excited for Kristen last week, only because I hadn't seen her in like months and months.
I was going to ask you. I hope that went well.
It went so well. It was the movies that we were looking at were heavy award contenders.
Nice.
One of them actually won. Both of them won awards in Cannes, and so it was just like, it just was like she had never left, and it was so good. But much like when you come back, because it's like you never left, and it is always so good.
Yeah.
I'm going to be doing 3 movies. You're sticking around for one, and then a brief conversation on a second. So the one that you're doing is Gladiator II. It's the follow-up to Ridley Scott's Best Picture winning movie. Interestingly enough, that one was entitled Gladiator. Right. So Russell Crowe, star-making picture. What's your relationship to the original Gladiator?
Oh, it's an absolute favorite of mine. I can watch that movie over and over. If I'm at a loss as to what to watch, that's one of my go-tos
for sure.
I remember it fondly from when I first saw it in the theater, and was happy with what it the awards it won and what it did for Russell Crowe. So yeah.
Compare and contrast to 13th Warrior.
You know what? I was thinking today as I was getting ready for work, knowing we were going to do this tonight, I thought, how am I going to work in 13th Warrior into this conversation? You just took it from me. I love it.
I'm doing it for you. So the wonderful thing about the original Gladiator is that it came out when DVDs were like, okay, everybody has a DVD player now. Okay,
right.
Everybody's buying DVDs, and that was one where it was like, oh, it's coming out. All right, I gotta be at Blockbuster Tuesday morning. Almost.
Right, absolutely, yeah.
And you mentioned it's high on your list of movies that if you're looking for something to watch, you put it on. It just was like I probably watched it like at least every other month for a couple years, where it just was like, I own it, I'm putting it in.
Right.
It just was such a ubiquitous, like, thoughtful action movie.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely.
And I got to show my son, because he went with me to see Gladiator II. He hadn't seen it before, and I got to show my son, and he's like, "Wow, that was really good." I was like, "Yeah, I know, right?"
Yeah.
So,
and the thing that I was thinking in the week before or the days before I saw it was how flabbergasted I was that it's been 24 years.
Yeah.
That was, I don't know how much of that played into your thinking as you saw the second one. It is a movie that stands alone, and yet we have a sequel. So
right, I know, and here we are, and such a long time for this sequel, and it's very much look, I'm not gonna lie, when I heard they're making Gladiator 2, my knee-jerk reaction is who's asking for a Gladiator 2?
Sure.
Like what about that world and those characters was left unresolved, because let's be honest, it was pretty well resolved.
Oh yeah.
Like, both the hero and the bad guy were super duper dead. This wasn't the Marvel universe where either of them could come back to life.
Right.
But little did we know. Oh wait, no, actually, this other person was still alive, and didn't even want to see a movie about this person. And my short answer would have been no.
Yeah.
But also at the same time, well, but if Ridley Scott's making it,
right. that for me, that had to have been the case for me to even consider that this would be something to see.
Right.
I would have been less inclined had it been directed by someone else, as we've seen other sequels go with, other franchises. Not to mention the fact, over the years, I'd read a lot of different things that Ridley Scott was thinking about doing with this film.
Right.
If ever there was a sequel, that were so out there. I don't know if you've ever read the articles around, his idea of putting it in the future and just, sort of a modern era kind of thing. It was
wow.
Yeah, it was really bizarre. And that's why when I saw the first trailer, I was heavily relieved that, okay, we're at least going to stay in the sword and sandal,
right. Yeah.
Roman
We're
Empire
still
thing.
in ancient Rome. Okay.
Yes,
yeah.
exactly.
Yeah. And this year, so we had Conclave, which was, thinly veiled, thinly veiled pointing to the election in the United States, and now we have Gladiator II.
Yeah.
And am I crazy for feeling that this is like also thinly veiled pointing to the state of the United States?
I can see where that would be the case. I try, and especially with films like this, I try not to read too much into that, but it's hard not to. I mean, the state of the world and the state of cinema, and especially when you consider how much we have seen people of the modern film era get so heavily involved in politics and so forth, it can't help but color what we see coming out.
Right. For sure.
And so, yeah. And honestly, as I was preparing to watch this, I thought to myself, okay, that's one thing I'll probably look for even without thinking.
Right.
But it was also the story was going to have to really grab me fast. And so I had a lot of reservations, Paul. I'm not going to lie. I love the first one so much that even though Ridley Scott was on the helm, even though there was, so much that, for me was a risk, I went in with a lot of reservation. I'm not going to lie.
Yeah, and I even like Paul Mescal. Like
Sure.
he's everything he's been in, I've really, really enjoyed. But nothing he's been in is even remotely like tangentially related to it.
Yeah, no, absolutely. In fact, I had to look him up right before I went into the film, and so much of his work is stuff that for me are I'm not going to say blind spots, but I had to go looking for a bit before I recognized anything. But now that I've seen him in this sort of mainstream kind of film, he's very talented.
Yeah. After Sun, just go see After. If you haven't seen After Sun, go find that one. That's the one that I would say is definitely required. But here the bottom line is, it's Ridley Scott with Denzel Washington. And so for as much as I was like, what are we doing here? I was also like, okay, well, Denzel Washington signed up. So it can't be all bad, because not necessarily because he always picks great movies, but because he's always good.
Yes. And he's good with great directors.
Right.
And so, yeah, this combination, I don't think we've seen before. And if we have, I don't recall off the top of my head. But it was a very compelling casting, and I have a couple of thoughts that I'm sure you do as well as to the performance. So,
yeah, well, okay, yeah. So, all right, now, so let's I'm just going to shout it out up front. The criticism of this movie from most people is this is really just basically the original. Like the overall plot points, major plot points of dude has a wife, dude loses everything, becomes a slave, including the wife. Dude decides that he is going to, through the machinations of being a gladiator, try to get revenge on the powers of Rome.
Right.
Through, and then finds himself face to face with his enemies. And those criticisms are 100% valid, because
absolutely,
that is what's going on. There are there are turns though. There are subtle adjustments that are made off of the original, particularly when it comes to what Denzel is doing.
Right.
That for me, I was just, are you not entertained? Fuck yeah, I was entertained.
The thing that stood out to me here in relation to what you're just saying is that same, the tropes of the, ancient Rome film, show, whatever, is exactly what you're describing though. The individual who's going against the empire, right? You see it in Spartacus. There's a series on Stars that, again, built around the same concept. You see it in there was another film that was coming to mind as you were saying, and it's hard to get away from that central point of someone who's been wronged by the empire and is trying to fight back. And that for me was the biggest risk of this film was, am I going to come out of it like I did with Creed 2 going, I just saw Rocky 4 again.
Yeah,
that was my fear.
Yeah. And but so the all right. We've done the plot. Like there's really not, like I'm trying to think, okay, well let's get through the plot, but really there's really nothing more. Like let's hit the characters. Okay. So and we're going to do the elephant in the room first, Denzel.
Okay.
Holy shit, whatever Denzel was on while he was making this movie, that's what I want to be on.
Yeah.
Because his performance in this movie is just like, I genuinely didn't know Denzel had this in him.
Okay.
Like not even just anymore, like ever. Like, can you think of any Denzel performance that was this colorful?
No. I mean, this is probably going to make you annoyed that I say this, but I mean this in all the best ways.
Yeah.
The last time I saw a performance like this from Denzel that really captured me was Training Day.
Okay.
In that, he became this character so fully.
Yeah.
And in a career where that's what he does. Okay. If you think about so many of his roles, Glory, American Gangster, I could go on.
Yeah.
Fences, he immerses himself, right? But there was something about this role that I felt like I wish I could have been in the conversations that he had with Ridley Scott and others, as they worked to cast him, about what he wanted to bring to this, because he brought himself to it.
Yeah.
There was only one small gripe I had. It was that in the beginning, there was a distinct moment when I felt like someone told him, okay, pull it back a bit. Oh. And then I felt like he was like in the era of the film.
Yeah.
I don't know if that makes sense, but Blair's mentioning Malcolm X. That's another one.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, you're right. This was the kind of performance that he could have phoned in, but he won't. And that's what I love about Denzel Washington as an actor.
Yeah. And I mean, so like, not to bring up people I hate, but like, one of the things that people like about Kevin Costner is that,
oh, we got 13th Warrior and Kevin Costner.
Yeah. One of the things that people like about Kevin Costner is he's always Kevin Costner in the movie.
Yes.
And people like that. I don't know why. I personally, I find him completely boring as a person. And so therefore he comes across as boring as a character.
Okay.
But a lot of times you could say, oh, that was Denzel, even though he's super versatile and he also, you get the feeling that he puts so much of himself, just of his own emotions into the character that,
absolutely,
I think about the Equalizer movies, because look, if we're talking, Denzel and post Training Day Denzel, the Equalizer movies and that type of character is, plays such a huge outsized role in what he's done over the past, 15 years, that it's impossible not to bring him up. And it's very calm. It's very, this is not that.
Exactly.
Like there is nothing about this character that is calm.
Yeah, the old cliche of chewing the scenery. This is what he did, but he did it to good effect.
Yeah. Yeah. And here, I mean, like, he's playing an openly bisexual, flamboyant, like manipulator, and and damn if he doesn't have his finger in every fucking person's pie.
Absolutely.
Like, just absolutely knows what's going on everywhere. And I mean, man, if you go to this movie and you're like, oh well, I don't, fuck this movie, it's like, then you just briefly fell asleep when Denzel was on the screen, because at the very least, you gotta be like, all right, I'm sticking around just to see what Denzel does.
Absolutely. And right away we get the whole idea that this movie transcends the notion of the gladiator role, because it really wasn't. The gladiator was and I'm not talking about just Paul Mescal's character. I'm just saying the arena, the gladiators, they weren't the focus, like they were in the first film. And so that, I think, is something that was a creative solution to that potential risk. Because when we did go to the arena, it was more for the spectacle than it was to move the story forward, because that's what was going on in the first film. The arena was moving the story forward.
And so let's talk about that for a moment, because now I want to talk about, I'm going to bring up another character, and the next character I'm going to bring up is General Acacius, played by Pedro Pascal. And this is where it's like, this is the classic Paul, just pick a thing and be about the thing. Because Pedro Pascal's character is in a storyline and headlines a storyline that the two most interesting characters, Paul Mescal, just because he's the gladiator, and Denzel Washington because he's fucking Denzel Washington. They are not involved in the Pedro Pascal storyline at all. And I really feel like the movie feels heavy during those scenes. And I love Pedro.
I wonder if the original script was going to be Pedro's story, because it was that reluctant general that, that would have been a bigger that would have been a problem if that's the route they'd gone. Although I don't know if we're going to talk about this, but I feel like the Lucius story really wasn't a story. That, in that, like you said at the beginning of our conversation, it was resolved at the end of film one. So that every time we went to Pedro Pascal, great as he is, you're right, it felt very wedged in. But we also had to get Connie Nielsen into the picture, which my question to you was, did we need Connie Nielsen other than for the political intrigue aspect?
Well,
which brought back the senator who played Gracchus in the first film. So there were these callbacks that I wondered, if I had to pare something away, would that have been it?
So clearly they needed Connie Nielsen to tie back to the original movie.
Well, sure,
and I think that you can still find things for Connie Nielsen to do that don't involve her being married to a general who, oh, by the way, is trying to do his own subversion of the, it's such a belabored plot point. So basically Pedro Pascal, is potentially what Maximus might have been if Maximus hadn't been thrown into the gladiator ring, i.e. looking for a way to give power to the Senate. But it's so like, my guy, this isn't going to work. Like what? And his character is because, he's just not, he's just not dynamic in this. Like he's not
fleshed out at all.
And it's like, It's sad. It's like I love Pedro Pascal, like, but at the same time, you know, and Grant, you know, like, okay, well, maybe if they'd done something where he was like Maximus's brother or something, because he's the Spaniard, whatever, you know, not saying that, whatever but I think there were ways to have him be a motivating character in the movie without giving him his own plot line that just doesn't work at all.
Yeah.
Is what I'm trying to get at.
No, and I agree. I really think that he was kind of wasted in this role.
Yeah, for sure.
But then it would have been easily 3.5 hours had they fleshed it out. So.
Oh my God, no, you're right. And it could have easily been just 2 hours if they had just snip, exactly. And just been like, you know what, let's get. But one of the most intriguing aspects of this movie for me that I just wasn't expecting, and was like, oh, that's interesting. The Emperor is played by emperors, and they're twins, they're fraternal twins. Yeah. And they are so bonkers. It's not even, I don't even know what to do with those two. And I'm happy for them. Like, I really am.
Those two characters, were they're the perfect foil for the characters of both Denzel and, you know, Lucius.
Right.
And they're there simply for that.
Yeah.
There's really not a lot. Excuse me. There's really not a lot we need to know about him, even if you don't know the history.
Yep.
Except that they're evil and they're in charge.
Yeah. Yeah.
And they play that perfectly.
Yeah. Like, and Joaquin already set the stage for us. We know we're not supposed to like the emperors. So,
right.
You know, yeah. Ultimately, though, I really was fucking entertained by this movie.
I'm the same. I'm excited that, and I was going to ask you, I'm looking up the numbers. How did it do? Because my theater was empty, but I did go at like 10:30 in the morning.
It was a respectable 50, like 55 or 58 or something like that. Okay. Not Wicked numbers, but
yeah, well, that's the thing. Take away Wicked, and this movie would have done.
Do you think so? I don't know who's going to see Wicked. That if Wicked weren't playing, would have been like, oh well, I just want to go see a movie, so I'll
good point. Yeah, I didn't think about it that way.
Yeah,
I didn't think about it that way.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, it's just one of those things where I think the premise was made people curious enough, but you had to have been a fan of the original to even consider going to this film. So I think 50 to 55, which I'm looking at here, is pretty respectable.
That's good. It's fine. You know, it's, guess what? It's not making Oppenheimer's, 900 million. It's not getting anywhere near close to that.
Right.
But I don't think that Wicked's getting anywhere near Barbie's 1 billion. So I could be wrong. I'll just be willing to eat my words if I'm wrong. But
yeah. What were your thoughts as far as this film goes? What were your thoughts on the moments of absolute inanity? Did they throw you out of the story? Like, where were the sharks kept when they weren't in the arena? Like, things like that, unfortunately, kind of tripped me up a little bit, but then I got over it because the rest of it was such great spectacle. But did you have any issues like that with the film of like, this just took me out because I had to think about it?
I loved seeing the Coliseum flooded so much.
Which historically apparently was done.
Correct. That the idea of putting sharks in there was so ridiculous. I was like, all right, that's fine. Like that aspect was so ridiculous. There's just absolutely no chance that they're putting a shark in there. It's just,
right. Because again, where would you put it? But that's the thing. It wasn't. There were parts of this movie for me. I was like, that wasn't necessary. Just the spectacle was enough.
Yeah.
But I will never forget that initial scene that we see. What were they, baboons or
the baboons? Yeah.
That was nightmare fuel. Okay, for me.
Oh wow. Okay.
That was. great in terms of, you know, the visual, but I just had never, you know, I know that they're like that. You don't see it played out, and
You
then
don't,
it
yeah.
does, and it's like, holy crap! Like,
my only thing with them is I wish I liked the rendering more.
Sure. Yeah. But I like I like. I'm excited that I'm hearing you say that you enjoyed this film.
I really
because
did.
I did as well.
I really did.
I really did.
I was like you. Like you. I was super nervous, but Denzel all the way to the very last second he's on screen is so good.
Absolutely.
All right. So here on Real to Real Talk, we do taco ratings rather than stars. And if we feel like something needs a little extra, instead of giving half a star, we put guac on. Why? Because nobody needs to have a fucking taco. All right, Sergio. Go ahead. What's your rating on how many tacos you giving Gladiator 2?
I had to weigh this against movies that I've seen this year and really sort of hold myself to a standard that I think is good for what we do here. This is for me.
Yeah.
This is 3 plus guac.
Okay.
I can't go 4.
No.
I want to go 4 because the heart loves this kind of spectacle, but I also have to think about story. I have to think about the slowdowns with Pedro Pascal's character. I have to think about, you know, the fact that this story, the guac is, this movie can stand on its own.
Okay.
As its own story. The callbacks and the tie back with Lucius is barely there. And so, you know, will I see it again? Absolutely. The guac overall is for just it being so entertaining, and the fact that I think it Denzel and makes it. I loved it, and I'll see it again, but I can't go higher than 3 in guac.
Yeah, I'm tempted to do the guac for Denzel. It's definitely a 3 taco movie for me.
Yeah, for sure.
I every time I think, oh, well, I kind of want to give it guac for Denzel. I want to give guac to Denzel, but then I think, but the Pedro Pascal scenes are such a drag.
Yeah,
like it's such the opposite energy of everything else going on. I'm landing on 3 tacos.
That's
which
fair.
It's good. I would see it again. I will more than likely buy it on Blu-ray, and I'll be happy with it.
I mean, I'll buy it on digital, but I'll buy it.
Yeah. All right, Sergio. I'm gonna be doing Wicked here. You haven't seen it. I asked you. I knew you weren't going to see it. But you felt the need to go out of your way before the show to say, and after I'm trying to get the exact quote, and after reading what it's about, I'm even less likely to see it, even though your chances of seeing it were near 0.
Well, so here's what happened, and I promise to keep this short because I know you want to get to the review. When you and I spoke about whether or not I was going to watch the film, we finished that conversation, and I thought about it. I said, you know what? I want to surprise Paul. I think I'll go see it and then say, hey, let's talk about it. I was just going to be a surprise.
Okay.
But I've never been intrigued by this story. I've never been curious about the musical at all. So I thought, okay, I'm going to read the synopsis. That way I know what I'm getting myself into. After reading the synopsis, I was so, and this is it's controversial. It's going to anger people. I was so upset because I'm a purist.
Okay.
I don't like it when, and it's always musicals that do this, when we change the intent of the original work.
Okay.
And that's my beef with this story, because I can't speak to the film. I hear
very much does. No, you're 100%.
But it changes a classic.
Yeah.
And I just don't like that. And so Jen and I got into a big debate, not a big debate, but we got into a bit of an argue, and I think we settled on let's agree to disagree, because she loves it. And I understand it has a lot of value.
She has seen Wicked, or
she's been to the production. She's been to the musical production. Yeah.
Okay.
And so I'm speaking purely about the story and what it tries to do.
Yeah.
I would have gone to the movies to watch this movie, and I would have been angry coming out of it.
Okay.
Which would not have been fair to the film, because again, I hear it's spectacular.
Yeah.
And so, but I just, my heart's intent was to surprise you, but also couldn't compromise my feeling.
You couldn't do it, and that's totally fine. And your time is precious. I get it. Thank you for your thoughts, Sergio.
Thank you, Paul.
And obviously, thank you for coming on board to talk Gladiator II. Just drop me a line. Let me know what else is coming out that you're going to want to see.
Absolutely. We'll talk soon, Paul.
All right. Bye.
Thank you so much. Take care.
All right. Wicked. It's just me. And, that's all right. Sergio, left me all alone. No, it's okay. Wicked. So here's my background with Wicked. My wife, Jen, read the books. Never heard anything heard about the musical, obviously, but never heard any music from the musical, nothing like that. Read the books just because they were interested in reading about, like the subject matter genuinely intrigued them. And loved the book. And so we've been waiting for it to come around. Finally it did. And it was just randomly happened to be this year. It came locally to South Florida on the off-Broadway traveling production came down to South Florida. So I went and saw it. And during the production, I was like, oh, this is okay. I know it's loved. It is beloved. And there are segments of the population for whom this is like one of, if not their most favorite musicals. And I love that. I love that there are people that love musicals, and I love that this is one that they love. That wasn't me. It didn't register with me at that scale, but I liked it. I liked it. It's good. It was really good, I thought. Which just saying only good is blasphemous. I understand. And so when I heard the movie was being made, I got to go see the movie. Obviously, not even just because of the podcast. I like musicals. And I had no idea. I had no expectations. Movies made out of musicals can be so hit or miss, whatever. I didn't know what to expect, and damn, I really liked the movie significantly more than the stage production. Like, significantly more than the stage production. And I think part of that is that this world lends itself to being so immersive that it open the medium of the movie opens itself up to being way more creative in what they can show and how they can show it than what a stage production ever could be. It's just a totally different experience, and it really worked for me. So for those who don't know, Wicked's basically a prequel to the Wizard of Oz. It's the telling of how the Wicked Witch, it's the origin story of the Wicked Witch of the West is really what it is. And we get to see what Oz is like. We get to learn more about a lot more individual characters within Oz, where with the Wizard of Oz, the primary characters are, is Judy Garland and Dorothy. And we have these sort of tangential characters that she hooks up with, but they sort of pass through areas, but this is just like really, it really dives into a lot of the area, and it's interesting. And it dives into the idea of magic in the area, and that's interesting. And the songs are okay. There it is again. I'm sorry. But here's what we find out in Wicked is the premise of Wicked is that Glinda and the Wicked Witch of the West, Elphaba is the character's name, were actually friends during college when they were 30 something and in college. By the way, just side note, musicals are allowed to do that apparently. Like, so Grease, the kids, John Travolta and was in, and the rest of the gang were in high school when they were like 28, 29, 30. Ariana Grande is 34 in college, and oh my God, I am sorry. I knew I was going to forget the character or the woman's name who plays the actor's name who plays Elphaba, but you know, they're way too old to be in college, and all of their friends. The nice thing is that they made everybody they cast is age appropriate for Ariana Grande, you know, and Cynthia Erivo. Cynthia Erivo is so good in this, and I know that people are saying that and you're hearing it, and I'm going to say it and you're going to hear it again. Yeah, Cynthia Erivo is so good in this as Elphaba, and I don't know if anybody's hearing it. I know there is some talk of it, but I think the bigger headline, honestly, is Ariana Grande is beyond good in this. Like, she is absolutely, positively captivating in this movie. Just unbelievable presence on screen and unbelievably funny. Like if you've ever seen her on Saturday Night Live, you understand. All right, so she has some comedy chops, but you just her command of the character and by extension her command of the screen is so compelling and impressive. And to have the two, you know, to nail the two leads like this musical does, it's so important, and they hit it absolutely out of the park. Absolutely out of the park. And I almost, you know, don't care that Jeff Goldblum's in it, because if the movie were a buddy cop movie and it was just Elphaba and Galinda going around Oz solving trying to solve a crime, I'd have been in. Like, okay, sure, let's do that, because I just want to see these two. And it works so well. I'm kind of apprehensive about the second movie because they're not going to be playing off each other as much, and that's what I want to see. I want to see these two amazing actors playing off each other. And I don't know what we're going to get with the second movie. By the way, this is a movie in two parts. So I'm giving the effusive praise up front. The problems. This doesn't need to be this long. Even part one was 2 hours and 40 minutes. And it's like, wow, it feels like it's 2 hours and 40 minutes. Like I maybe part of that is, well, you ask for immersion, and you're right. I did ask for immersion, and I suppose on some level, 2 hours and 40 minutes gives immerses me beyond anything I could beyond my wildest dreams. But similarly, I feel like if you're going to do two movies, I think you could easily do two movies in, 2 hours easily. And if you're not going to do two movies, I think you could have done the whole damn thing in 240. I don't know. I could be wrong on that, but hey, again, I really liked it. I really liked what they did here, and bravo to them. Bravo for making $120 million opening weekend. I mean, that, people, that's not getting 100 million opening weekend is not like just expected and automatic anymore. So people are coming out for this because the reality is the source material was already, beloved, and so it leaned heavily on that, and it held true to it, and I feel like audiences are getting rewarded for putting trust into it. Ariana Grande for best supporting actress, I'm just gonna say it right now, that she gets my vote. Just unbelievable. So Wicked, guess what? I like this better than Gladiator II, so therefore I'm giving it 3 tacos plus guac. That's just where we're landing on Wicked. Go and see it, man. If you're like looking for, it's Thanksgiving weekend, you've got 4 days, go see a movie. And, Gladiator and Wicked are certainly two movies that you could go see, or you could sit at home and watch a movie. And one of those you could watch is called Blitz. So Steve McQueen of 12 Years a Slave fame, This is his latest movie. And it takes place during the Blitzkrieg of England during World War II. And it's a small story that has that has this ginormous event going on around it. It's one of those movies. It's one of those movies that puts itself in an environment, in a much bigger environment than what the story is. And I think that works. I think that works because it lends heft to the idea and the importance of the bond between a child and their parents and their community, and the importance of being an individual, but also feeling like they belong, and the importance of acceptance and accepting people who aren't necessarily similar to you. And but also, you know what? It's also important to be close to those that you love. And this is a really, really emotional movie that it almost gets lost in the landscape that it puts itself in. On some parts it works because it's like the heft of what the people on the Isle of England, or in the country, on the Isles, are having to put up with, props up this idea and propels this idea of separating. So what's happening is that there's a young boy by the name of George, whose mother, Rita, played by Saoirse Ronan. Got it. Yes. All right. Saoirse Ronan plays the mother. George is her young son. She had the child, or the child's father is from Guadeloupe. And yep, so he's a mixed race baby. And so there's definite like ostracization, picking on the kid overtones going on in the movie. But the main thrust of the movie is she has to send her kid out, a la Bedknobs and Broomsticks, to the outskirts of the countryside because the cities are just not safe. But he doesn't want to do it, and so he tries to make his way back to London. And it's the bulk of the movie is just following George trying to get back into London. And it's touching, and it's sweet, and it's really difficult, and it's I highly recommend people watch it. I would love to hear what other people think of it, because it worked for me on most levels, but there were some things where it was just like this. It just sometimes feels slight while trying to be important, if that makes sense. But it's it's compelling. It absolutely is compelling. This one is getting the 3 tacos. Blitz on Apple Plus, 3 tacos. Check it out over the weekend. This is Real to Real Talk. I am Paul. That was Sergio. We got Moana 2 coming out, so I'm going to be here next week looking at Moana 2. Alone or with people, I don't know, but I love the original Moana. Like love the original Moana. It's one of my favorite. It's definitely my favorite post Renaissance Disney animated Renaissance feature. So what's Moana 2 gonna do? I don't know. We'll find out. But thanks for coming by. Be sure to stop by again next week. I hope you go out and see some movies this weekend and have a wonderful, wonderful Thanksgiving.